Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here. I did film, edit, and post a video last night on my thoughts pertaining to unconditional love. Somebody left a comment on my last video with a prompt of what unconditional love in relationships, in all relationships, means to me. I thought about it through the week. I filmed little snippets as the days went on. It was almost like a vloggy style video. I was more focusing on unconditional love in relationships where you're healing, because I felt like maybe for myself personally, like unconditionally loving my husband comes so naturally to me, but for other relationships that could be with family members, maybe for you it's your parents or a friend that has hurt you in the past, it is a lot harder to get back to that point of unconditionally loving that person. The video was in the direction of letting go and allowing yourself to trust in unconditionally loving those who you are in a healing relationship with. I posted the video, but it still felt incomplete to me. So to the person that commented the prompt, I will get to it, but I don't want to post the video without it truly being the authentic and genuine entire thought. Like, I want it to feel full. Yeah, I'll be meditating on that and posting that soon. But today we're talking about sobriety. I did want to film and post this when I hit 100 days of sobriety, but I'm very confident and I know I'm going to hit 100 days, so I don't mind making the video early. And somebody also asked me on my last video what I am sober from all drugs or just alcohol, and I thought this was an interesting topic to talk about because I was sober curious for so long. So this may be something that interests you. I am currently 77 days sober, and I do have an app. I have an app because I like to see the number. Okay, purr. I'm proud of myself. This is the longest I've ever gone in my entire life without drinking. I love this app because there's a community feature where it shows people that are also on the same day as you, and you can just kind of see what their comments are and how they're feeling. So it's super encouraging. I will preface this video by saying that I never had an alcohol addiction, so I don't want it to look like, oh, I'm sober and this is some grand accomplishment because before I would go on benders and binge drink. It's not like that. I feel like everybody's sobriety journey looks completely different, and mine was never where my entire life was compromised because of alcohol. So it's very interesting though, because since I felt like I didn't have an alcohol problem, I allowed myself to continue in my drinking. I didn't feel like going sober was completely necessary because of an addiction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in terms of your relationship with alcohol and why sobriety may be the key, even if you don't have an addiction. Also, I am sober from all drugs, which is pretty crazy and awesome. As we have this conversation, I want to make one thing. Oh, not the offer of notification. Dude, they be sending me notifications and I keep looking at them. Stop. As we have this conversation, I want to make one thing very clear. This is a safe space when we talk about alcohol and not judging people that drink. However, I don't want to be coy in the perspective that alcohol is very dangerous. I feel like having this conversation without acknowledging the dangers of alcohol would be dishonest, and it would also be wrong, because even though you may think that your relationship with alcohol is normal, it very well could be an addiction, and it very well could be an abusive relationship. Just kind of keep that in mind as we have this conversation. I want to be very frank with some of these points that I make, because I feel like that's how I best receive information, especially when I'm in denial. That's kind of where we'll be coming from. This entire conversation comes from a place of love and a place of understanding. So yeah. So my relationship with alcohol started well before I was 21. I would drink and not know my limits. It took me a very long time to understand my limits. For some people, it comes easy. Like, they don't really need some sort of like crazy blackout moment to know when to stop drinking. For myself, I needed a blackout moment, and I had quite a few, especially when I was like 18, 19, 20. I don't want to say 21. I feel like by 21 I was drinking and getting drunk, but I wasn't blacking out. But yeah, in the beginning I had no idea where my limits were, and I also would just keep going. Like I would puke and rally. I would do that a lot. Entering my early 20s, I gained this hobby with my husband of trying new beers and being super fascinated in different breweries. My husband is also a bar manager and super big into mixology, so hearing him geek out about different drinks and different combinations, I love to hear about it. Even to this day, even though I'm sober, I still love to hear about his infusions and what him and his friends are working on. It still interests me, but the part about me trying it is just not there. The desire is just not there. But yeah, so entering my 20s, I was kind of surrounded by that all the time. Our outings would usually consist of us going to different breweries. Even the day that I got engaged, we were brewery hopping. It's just so fun. I can still say confidently that like I really miss that. The only thing that I miss is trying different beers and drinking a bunch of beer. That was my relationship in my 20s, going into my 20s, and then since I worked at a sushi restaurant, I would also drink at work with customers. I feel like at a sushi restaurant, it's culturally normal to want to share that moment with a patron and to have some sake with them. I would get lit at work, not to the point where I was like completely inebriated or obliterated, but I would get lit at work. It was fun. I also feel like it calmed me down in terms of like being able to complete tasks, because I feel like the alcohol would just chill out my brain. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, and I felt like it helped me stay focused at work. But throughout these moments, especially my early 20s, I kind of kept going back to being sober curious, and I was wondering what that would look like for me. But I felt like since I didn't think of my relationship with alcohol as abusive or that I had an addiction, I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to give up alcohol. It makes sense why it took me so long to let it go. It's socially normal to drink more than to not drink, and if I felt like I didn't have a problem, then it didn't feel like I needed to sacrifice it, because it didn't feel like a huge sacrifice, so I was gonna keep going back to it. I'm not exactly sure what propelled me forward. I think I had just seen different circumstances where alcohol was not seen as a friend, but more as an enemy, where I realized that it kind of just makes people act a fool, to be honest. And not all the time, but there were moments that I saw where I was just like, damn, like, I really don't even want that entering my body, because I don't want to be anywhere near it. So it wasn't necessarily that something motivated me to be sober, but more that there was a lack of desire to drink. I thought, let's just see how long I could go. This time, I did something different than I would do in the past, which was instead of setting a date to see if I could not drink for X amount of time, I just told myself that you can drink whenever you want, but that's a decision that you're gonna make. And so every day that went by, I realized that I don't really feel like drinking. Maybe there's just drinks all around me and I feel like I want to fit in. So I wouldn't drink because I'm like, I don't really want the drink. I kind of just want to feel like I'm included. And then as time went on, I would have the desire to maybe crack open a beer, but then I was like, you're doing so good, then why would you mess it up for one beer? Then afterwards you might regret it. So I was just being super mindful about the moment, and it's almost like I put alcohol on this pedestal where I'm like, you need to really crave it to want it. That way it hits, like that way it feels super good. But that moment never came. And to this day, I still am saying that like if there ever comes a moment where you really want to drink, then you can have your drink. But it just hasn't come yet. And then I slowly started feeling like my mind and body felt sharper in a way. It's so weird. Let's just put it this way. The way that I would feel when I would drink wasn't necessarily bad, but the way that I would feel when I didn't drink was just so much better. So I'm like, why would I not choose better? It's just that I was so proud of myself for the woman I am when I don't drink, that I just kind of was more focused on who I could be as opposed to like this other person. Even though this other person wasn't necessarily terrible, they just were drinking. It's very weird, and I also feel like explaining it's hard for me to find the words because there was no exact turning point. There were a lot of different things that I felt like kept encouraging me to not drink, and it still is like that to this day. Like, I'll find different reasons where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so happy that I didn't drink, or oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. Looking at it through the eyes of like the discipline has really, really been my compass, because I feel like I've gained this confidence in myself from being able to not drink. That's just coming from somebody who wasn't even addicted. Like, I would just drink sometimes and then I just decided that I don't want to anymore, and that is enough to make me feel proud of myself. Drinking is also directly correlated with mortality. So like, I look at it through the scientific and physical lens as well, of like the adverse reactions of drinking. And then after it became a discipline that I would see in myself physically, I started to see the benefits spiritually. I always felt like when I would drink, I wasn't fully aware. Okay, obviously because I'm drinking, but like, I'm just not fully there, and there was a lack of control. At times, especially when you're stressed, you kind of don't want the control. You kind of want to let it go. And that's kind of like the enticing part about drinking, is that if you feel like, oh my gosh, like I just need to let loose, alcohol allows you to do that. But I feel like it's just the easiest way, like the quickest way to let go. But there's so many other ways to let go that have long-term benefits, because when you let go with alcohol, yeah, it decreases your stress for this amount of time, but then later on, your cortisol spikes. You're even worse than if you just hadn't drank in the first place. Looking at it from the physical and scientific point of view, I was like, okay, well, it's just not really serving me. And then that kind of overlapped with the spiritual benefit of feeling like I have control over my words and actions, and not just most control, but I have all control. What later began to interest me was the rest of the drugs, because I just hadn't done drugs while doing this no alcohol thing. And so I was like, should I just full on go sober? Because I haven't been doing anything else too. I could just be fully sober. For me, I wasn't ever big on like smoking weed. During COVID, I did smoke a lot of weed, but I felt like I was getting more adverse reactions than positive ones when I would ingest or smoke weed. So I was like, okay, that one's kind of out. Like, I wouldn't really want to do that one anyways. But then everything else, like psilocybin and psychedelics, those have always been super cool and fun for me. So I was like, do I have to give that up? And then I started to think, well, you don't have to do anything, but do you want to? And then I'm like, I mean, I guess. Looking at it from a spiritual lens, I always kind of thought it was weird being under the influence of something, because I felt like you're more vulnerable. Like, you don't really have your armor or your guard up. You're more vulnerable to like anything. I feel like on the physical plane and also the spiritual plane. So I was kind of like low-key freaked out. Like, maybe I should just like be sharp and be present in my body and in my mind all the time, because like, you never know. I'm just like, no. No, I think I'd rather be here to protect my mind and body. So it wasn't until like super recently that I've decided to like swear off all drugs. I just hadn't done them for the last 77 days or longer for other drugs. For drinking, it's been like 77 days for a fact, but like, I don't remember the last time I did the other drugs. It's been a really long time. But yeah, I feel like spiritually, I just want to feel grounded in sobriety, because it's true and it's real and in this point in my life. And if I feel like it's something that I would want to partake in again, I would just kind of check in and pray about it and see if that's something that I actually want to do, or if there's some ulterior motive as to why I want to participate in it. The benefits that I felt for me kind of took a while to notice, because since I didn't have such a strong addiction and it wasn't like a daily thing to drink alcohol, it wasn't like my body was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing, I feel like $1,000,000, because like, I was already having a pretty healthy lifestyle. I would just drink 2 to 3 times a week. So it took a very long time for me to like notice any changes. But the first change that I noticed, I started to feel like happier. I feel like I'm also a pretty happy person. I was just like, oh my gosh, this feels like really good. Like, what? And then I also like my menstrual symptoms were not nearly as bad. And the only thing that I changed was not drinking. So I'm like, no way. And I also felt like I could trust myself more and the decisions that I could make, because I felt confident in what I've done for myself. What I do and say, I know that I'm saying and doing those things through a very sober and present state. I can trust myself more. They said, do you think you will stay sober for a really long time, or if it's more a temporary thing for the time being? I like to say we're playing it by ear, but at the same time, if it feels this good, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So I think it might be a long time thing. I don't know. I even thought to myself, maybe I'll have a beer when I hit my 1-year anniversary of marriage. And then I was like, but why? I think I'm just being super mindful about like, why does alcohol have to be the reward of celebrating something? I don't understand that part. Like, is it because you haven't been doing it for so long that you want to give yourself something that you haven't had? But then the basis of why you're not giving it to yourself is because not having it is better. So then why would you award yourself with something that you felt like brought you down? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's constantly moving where I'm like, I don't know, like, why do you want to give that as a reward? This person did say that they've been curious about sobriety, and my best piece of advice would probably just be to try it. Just to try it. Don't give yourself an allotted amount of time unless that's how you best operate, but just see if you take it one day at a time and like not drink, and see if you notice the changes in your body or how you feel spiritually, if you feel spiritually equipped. For myself, for the app that I use, I Am Sober, it asks you what your testimony is, or like, why are you going sober? And I put to be spiritually equipped. When I drink or when I'm under the influence, I'm not fully there. You're just not fully there. You may not act crazy, you may just be chill, but you're still not fully there. And I want to be fully present in the moment, in every moment, and to allow myself to feel things, to allow myself, like, if I'm feeling stressed, like, okay, let's unpack what is making you feel stressed. Before, I would subtly use alcohol as a pacifier, like, oh, you're feeling kind of like, man, like, just drink. It soothes you in a way where it doesn't allow you to actually acknowledge, regulate your emotions. It's literally something for you to check out, but you actually haven't done any of the hard work. So also, without alcohol in my life, I've been able to reflect a lot more on like why I feel certain ways about certain things. Having to unpack and identify why I don't really like alcohol has allowed me to have that same practice in other ways of my life, in other aspects of my life. Like being in a situation where I'm like, okay, I'm making a conscious decision here in this realm of alcohol. You can make that same conscious decision in other aspects of your life. It may take time, and it may take willpower and brain power to have to think more about things before you do them, but that's just so much better. Like, it's just so much better. One more thing, I would get really bad anxiety. If you get really bad anxiety, just try to be sober, because my life feels so much better without being anxious. I would have anxiety after having one beer. Like, I feel like I wasn't even buzzing, I wasn't tipsy. The next day I was like, oh my gosh, like, what happened? But yeah, that's pretty much my journey with sobriety. Really digging it, and I'm proud of myself. That's something that I want to acknowledge as well. Like, it's something to be proud of, because it's just doing something that's not normal, which is weird. Why is sobriety such a radical thing? Like, it's not. It shouldn't be. If it's not serving me in this moment, I'm just not going to partake. I implore you to kind of analyze your relationship with alcohol. If it's something that you are curious about giving up for a bit, just try it, see what's up. Consult your body, consult your mind and your heart, and where you feel you need to tighten up in terms of discipline. You'll see how fun and freeing it is to create these random boundaries in your life. It's so weird. But I think that's it for this. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. If you do decide to take the plunge and try it, let me know. I recommend getting the I Am Sober app. This is what the app looks like. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, okay. That's all. Bye guys.